Identify the contrapositive of the statement. Two congruent angles have the same measure. This is the hypothesis and this is the conclusion. If two angles are congruent, then they have the same measure. The contrapositive would be negative Q to negative P. Okay, so we need to make both of them opposite and flip it. So it's not going to have the same measure, then they're not going to be congruent angles. If two congruents have the same measure, that's Q, then they are congruent, that's P, that's the converse. It goes from Q to P. If two angles do not have the same measure, that's negative Q, then they are not congruent, that's negative P. This one checks. If two angles are not congruent, that's a negative P, then they do not have the same measure as a negative Q. So this one goes negative P to negative Q, that's your inverse. Okay, so far this one works. If two angles are congruent, it's the same as that. Then they have the same measure, it's the same exact thing, and that's your conditional. So the answer on this is B. Identify the contrapositive of the statement. Remember, a contrapositive is negative Q to negative P, right? A square, that's your hypothesis, has four congruent angles, that's your conclusion. If a figure is not a square, that's negative P, then it does not have four congruent angles, negative Q, that's your inverse. If a figure is a square, that's P, it's not negative P, then it has four congruent angles, that's your conditional. If a figure has four congruent angles, that's repeating this, that's Q, then it is a square, P, that's your converse. A figure does not have four congruent angles, it talks about this, negative Q, then it is not a square, negative P. So negative Q to negative P is your converse, isn't it?